Warning: the following video contains some spoilers for Baldur's Gates 1 and 2. You have been warned. Hello YouTube and welcome to Prime Productions. I'm here to help enhance your tabletop gaming experience. If you're new to this channel, I primarily focus on Paizo tabletop role-playing games like Pathfinder and Starfinder. And if you want to help me out, I have a Patreon and Discord, more info at the end of the video. So this is a sequel video to my previous video where I converted a bunch of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 characters to Pathfinder 2e. A lot of you seem to respond positively to that previous video, so you know what, I'm willing to give it another go. So let's convert some more characters. And if you missed my first video, I'll put a link in the description to it where I converted the first 6 Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 characters to Pathfinder 2. If you are new here and confused, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, a game company called BioWare put out games called Baldur's Gates 1 and 2, a top-down isometric RPG based on Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition. And the games had a ton of companion characters that you could interact with, especially in Baldur's Gate 2 where they were more interactable, and they had their own side quests and everything. Side note, years after the games were released, Beamdog, another game developer, re-released them for modern computers and made some improvements, including adding a few new companions, one of which I'll be touching on in this video. Also, I'm not going to be doing full builds since I'm going through multiple characters, so this is going to be done lightning round style. I'll just give you some of the backstory of the character, their ancestry, background, class, subclass, and then any special considerations. Also, please note that Pathfinder 2 and Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition are two different games, obviously, so I may have to change a few things around like classes. Just remember I'm trying to get to the heart of the character, not recreate what it says on the D&D character sheet. Let's start off with a fan favorite character that was in both Baldur's Gates 1 and 2 and even makes a cameo appearance in Baldur's Gate 3, Viconia Devir.
Mother Superior Viconia Devir.
You still have the wits to recognize your betters.
Viconia is a drow, an evil dark elf from a group of subterranean elves that live in Baldur's Gate's world of Forgotten Realms. However, she was forced to flee her home and come to the surface after she refused to perform a ritual sacrifice that would serve no purpose. Now, you might think that makes her good-aligned, but no, she's still evil. She's just not stupid. She realized that killing a potentially useful drow for a goddess of the drow that wouldn't do anything was moronic. But such quote-unquote betrayal earned her the ire of her community and she was forced to flee. Anyway, she switched from worshipping Lolth, the drow goddess, to Shar, an also evil goddess of like pain, loss, and suffering. But at least Shar isn't quite as bad, I guess. She's willing to let Viconia help heal you, so One last thing is to note Viconia's low strength score. That will be important for later. Now, for ancestry, Viconia is a drow, which no longer exists in Pathfinder 2e after a bunch of legal issues, but we can get something close. If we make her an elf with the Cavern Elf heritage, that makes her an elf with dark vision who lived underground, so we're good to go. As far as her first level ancestry feat, Viconia is kind of a sourpuss, so let's make her a forlorn elf? For background, Viconia is a refugee from the Drow Nation, so let's make her a refugee. This gets her trained in society and her hometown lore of Menzoberranzan lore, and also grants her the streetwise skill feat. Now, for her class, Baldur's Gate Viconia is a cleric, and I see no reason to change that. In the games, she is proficient in armor, but actually can't wear most armors due to her low strength. So I'm going to make her a cloistered cleric. As for special considerations, we need to find an evil goddess of torture, pain, loss, and suffering for Viconia to worship, so that we can get her domains and stuff. Oh, there is one named Dolores?
Because you know, deep down, you deserve to be punished.
Okay, sounds about right. Anyway, through Dolores, Viconia can get the Sorrow domain using her free domain initiate feat for being a cloistered cleric. And also for special consideration, if you really think she needs some armor, consider picking up Sentinel dedication for free armor training. Next up, let's talk about a fan favorite that people were sad did not make the cut for my first video, Jansen. Yes, that's how you pronounce his name. Those J's are pronounced with the Y sound. Jansen is a strange character. He's a gnome thief mage specializing in illusions. BT dubs, thief was the D&D 2nd edition word for rogue, mage was the word for wizard. But in addition to that, he's also an inventor, and also is just insane. He rambles on and on of wild stories about his distant relations and is obsessed with turnips. He's clearly crazy. Or is he? There's a fairly good point to be made that this might all be obfuscating stupidity, where he pretends to be an insane goofball in order to put people off their guard. We see this in his personal side quest. As soon as he hears that his sister and nephew are in trouble, he loses all pretext, locks in, and runs off to help them. Now, I said that he's an inventor, but inventor isn't a class in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition. His inventions mostly come in the form of special gear he starts with. A vest that gives him some damage reduction, goggles and gloves that help him find and remove traps, and a super complicated mechanical crossbow. Okay, so for ancestry, Jansen is obviously a gnome. He seems like a goober that is always looking for new sensations, so I'll give him the sensate heritage. As for ancestry feat, he has these skull-shaped flash bombs he can make every day, so I'll give him the razzle-dazzle feat to show his expertise with flash weapons. For background, we initially recruit him when he's trying to sell these flash bombs without a license. Flash bombs that only he can use. So let's go with the charlatan background, which nets him the deception skill, and underworld lore skills, and the charming liar skill feat. As for class, here's the thing. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition had a weird thing when it came to multiclassing. Non-human multiclassed characters like Jan got the full benefits of 2 classes, but tended to be 1 to 2 levels behind the rest of the party. So, which class do we go with? Well, he does get up to the highest level of magic in the game eventually, so let's stick with Wizard as our main class. That way he can get up to the highest rank spells. I'm going to go with the School of Mentalism Wizard, as that has the most illusion spells, and Jan is an illusionist. However, wizards actually get a second subclass in Pathfinder. Pick whatever you want. I like giving him a fun little familiar, but do whatever you want. Then, for special considerations, I'd make him a multi-class into either Rogue or Inventor. Rogue if you want him to be better at disarming traps, Inventor if you really want to make use of those inventions. Either one is fine. Next up, we have a lesser-known character, Kivan. Kivan is an example of how to do the whole loner consumed by vengeance thing correctly in a TTRPG. That is to say, his backstory is that he's an elven ranger whose wife was murdered by an evil brigand band, and now he's on a quest for revenge. He's dour and brooding and a loner, but is still willing to work with the party and interact with him. Despite his kind of generic archetypical character concept, he's actually pretty cool to have in the party and has a lot of fun personality interactions. Kivan is depicted in his artwork as an archer, but Kivan's strength is actually higher than his dexterity, and he starts off specialized in the halberd, so that's what I'm going to build him as. Like Viconia, Kivan is an elf. Now in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition, Rangers got some druid-like spells, so I'm going to make him an ancient elf, which gets us a free class archetype at level 1, and I'm going to choose druid for some spells. For ancestry feat, any work, but the always useful nimble elf can make him faster, which is always neat. For background, there's a million we could choose from, such as Outrider or Hermit. I think I'm going to go with Scout. This nets Kivan the survival skill, anyone terrain lore, so like forest lore, and the forager skill feat. Also, remember, any skills anyone picks up, if they already have them, they get to choose a new skill instead. For class, like I said, Kivan is a ranger, and I see no reason to change that. Since he'll be using a big halberd, let's make him a precision ranger instead of flurry, as flurry works better for like 2-weapon fighting. Lastly, special considerations. I'd recommend sinking some class feats into druid dedication in order to pick up a few spells, then just run around with breastplate and a halberd beating on people. Next up, we have one of my favorite characters, though I seem to be in the minority. Aerie. She's an elf. Man, Baldur's Gate really liked their elves, didn't they? Anyway, she's a winged elf or flying elf that was captured by an evil circus and was stuck in a cage as a circus sideshow. Eventually, her wings got infected and they had to get amputated in order to prevent the infection from spreading and endangering her life. At this point in time, the circus gets taken over by newer, better management, and the new owner frees her and teaches her both clerical and wizardly magic, and she ends up working for the circus before she joins the party. She's shy, polite, and pretty sad and melancholic about losing her wings and never being able to ride the air currents again, which leads a lot of people to thinking she's a sourpuss and a downer, but like, come on, people. She lost the one thing in life that gave her true joy, feeling the air currents beneath her wings. Give her some slack. Anyway, Aerie is an elf, like before. Now I'm going to do something strange, and instead of making her a wizard cleric, I'm going to make her a wizard witch. That way we can have arcane spells and divine spells through her patron, all of which uses her intelligence modifier. So, again, I'll take ancient elf like Kivan, but for witch instead of druid. For her first level ancestry feat, there's nothing more appropriate than forlorn elf for Aerie. As for background, I chose rigor, which nets Aerie the athletic skill and combat climber skill feats, which don't fit terribly well, but more importantly, it gives her the circus lore skill. As for class, like I said, I'm going to make her a wizard. You can choose whichever subclass you like. Personally, I think the School of Protean form speaks to her because that would give her the ability to get her wings back, if only temporarily. Also, like I mentioned with Jan, wizards get a second subclass called an arcane thesis. Choose whatever you want. Then, of course, for special considerations, her witch patron has to be one that grants divine spells, such as Faith's Flamekeeper. Also, Aerie will want to sacrifice some wizard feats for witch feats in order to get witch spellcasting. And if you're wondering why I went wizard and then archetyped into witch instead of vice versa, well, 2nd edition D&D clerics only got up to level 7 spells, while wizards got up to level 9. By making Aerie this way, Aerie's arcane spells are higher than her divine spells, just like in the game. Okay, for the next character, I need to do a little prefacing. This character was not in the original Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 games, and was in the Beamdog remake that was made years later. Another preface is that Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition did not have sorcerers. They were kind of retconned back into Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 with the Beamdog release, but they weren't really a thing initially. So with all that said, Neera is a half-elf from a small village and she is a wild mage. She was born with a natural proclivity for magic, but when she started learning from a local wizard, she found that her spells would often go strangely wrong, even if she did everything correctly. Anyway, an incident causes her to run away from her magic school and also alerts the Red Wizards of Thay to her location. Yes, the same Red Wizards of Thay from the D&D movie. They want to dissect her and understand how wild magic tendencies work, so she's on the run from them. Okay, so Neera is going to be human with the Ayuvaranor half-elf heritage. For her first level ancestry feat, pick whatever you want. If you want a generic option, elf atavism for cavern elf to get dark vision is always a plus. For background, I chose Inexplicably Expelled, which is a campaign-specific background, so talk to your GM. This nets her the crafting skill and academia lore skill, and also the specialty crafting skill feat, and that does make sense as she did enchant her own magic staff. For class, I'm going to veer off course and make her a sorcerer instead of a wizard. It is implied in the game that wild mages are born, not made. This is an innate quality of some people that when they learn magic, they become wild mages, where magic occasionally just goes wonky when they cast spells. However, I will go into Imperial Bloodline Sorcerer so that Neera still has arcane spells like Fireball, just like a normal wizard. And for special considerations, well, Pathfinder doesn't have wild magic sorcerers like D&D, but it does have the Wellspring Mage class archetype, which is similar. When combat starts, a Wellspring Mage has a chance to have random magic effects happen, which is similar to the wild magic that Neera has, so it's a pretty good stand-in, I feel. Alright, our last character is pretty universally hated by the community, but he's such an interesting and complex character that I couldn't not include him. This is Anomen Delryn from Baldur's Gate 2, and he is a total jerkwad. Let me explain. Anomen is basically an in-universe toxic player. He's rude, arrogant, and entitled. He calls himself a paladin and has joined a paladin order, but he's actually a multi-class fighter cleric. Side note, in D&D 2nd edition, human multiclassing worked different than non-human multiclassing. Human multiclassing worked by leveling up one class, stopping, and then leveling up a different class starting from level 1 again. Anyway, Anomen is a noble who hates his father and loves his sister, and like I said, is arrogant and self-righteous, until you do his personal quest. In his personal quest, you find his sister has died, and his dad suspects who the killer is but doesn't know for sure. And here you can tell Anomen to either take vengeance, striking down someone who might be innocent, or to take the high ground and possibly let a murderer go. The Anomen who takes vengeance falls, is kicked out of the order, and becomes a wild card, becoming chaotic neutral. However, the Anomen who follows the law and realizes that being a priest and paladin is a lot more difficult than just smiting evil, at that point he becomes a better person and is less insufferable. He becomes lawful good to better represent the ideals he strives towards, and even gains a boost to his wisdom score. It's fun to see this bit of character development, especially when we didn't used to see character development in video games back in the day. So, how to build him out? Well, obviously, Anomen is human. For heritage, I'd take versatile human to get the fleet feat. For his first level ancestry feat, no question it has to be haughty obstinacy. As for his background, I like Squire, as he is a squire in the most honorable order of the Radiant Heart, that paladin organization he's in. This nets him athletics and the armor assist skill feat, as well as either heraldry or warfare lore. For his class, I think I will go with fighter. Fighters don't usually get a subclass, but I would recommend focusing on weapons like maces and flails, which seem to be Anomen's preferred weapons. And of course, for special considerations, take cleric dedication and cleric spellcasting feats to get some cleric spells. If you want Anomen to be more spellcastery, you could make him a war priest with the Ulfin or Black Jacket archetype in order to get reactive strike. Or you could make him a cleric with the Battle Harbinger class archetype, which would be a good balance between the two. We also need a deity for Anomen to follow, and I think I found one in the Anointing of Kings pantheon. This pantheon asks its followers to better themselves, but is kind of all about pomp and circumstance, and always taking every status promotion you can get. It feels very Anomen-like to me. Anyway, that's all I had to say for today. I really like doing these lightning round conversion videos. It's fun to theory craft. Let me know if you want more of these. There are other D&D video games I could look into, such as the Neverwinter Nights games. These were fun to do. Let me know if you want to see more. As a reminder, I have a Patreon. I'm going to try and post something fun there once a month, but honestly, it's just a way to keep this channel financially viable. Just a few bucks a month, and I'm toying with the idea of adding a limited higher tier where you can request a specific video. Let me know what you think. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That tells not only me, but also YouTube that you like this kind of content and would like to see more. And until next time, thank you, good luck, and happy gaming.